I like that. I like that.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!
And we're back. Hello and welcome everyone to our third episode discussing all things geekdom called I Like That Too. You may recognize our voices from such podcasts as Positively Star Wars Senate. So welcome to our spin-off special. Teaming up for us this roundtable will be Ricky.
Hello.
I am Ryan, and joining us for the first time here is Steven.
Hello, brother.
The obligatory Brit, as we like to call him. So, you may be asking yourself, what topic can be strong enough, influencing enough, and at times confusing enough to bring us together for a third time? Well, that would be the nearly 19-year-old TV ABC special called Lost. So, here we are. This is strong enough to bring us and another person back to join us for this. So, welcome everybody. Welcome.
19 years.
Wow, I can't believe
Yeah,
it's
I
been
don't
that long.
think-
No. It's amazing.
So, and realistically, I think
Can we
this.
still use those lottery numbers? If it hasn't worked
I,
by now.
actually- I tried using those recently. I was like, well, 800 billion? Yeah, I'll 40, 15, 16, 23, 42. So, nothing.
You haven't memorized.
So this idea kind of came up because, as I mentioned, we're kind of all the Star Wars podcast, but Steven has always brought up like, I'm rewatching Lost this month, so I'm too busy doing something else. And I think I've been wanting to rewatch Lost for a while, and I couldn't ever make it past like halfway through the first season, and I finally just buckled down and watched it all. And then Ricky watched it, and it's like, you know what? This show, it was such a huge, phenomenal thing and very controversial in the last season, much like many shows nowadays, you can be honest. So it'd be fun to just touch base on one of the biggest shows of the early 2000s. So we're all here to discuss Lost.
I like the ending.
There's nothing wrong with the ending.
Spoiler. Will there be? I don't know. You'll have to wait till we get to that part of the discussion. Maybe it was terrible. But maybe it was.
Honestly, though, I haven't watched the entire series in like a few years, but I did start watching it again. I watched the pilot, or half of the pilot the other day. So.
Oh, you're totally caught up then. You got half the pilot.
I did watch those quick videos. Remember, while the show was airing, to get viewers caught up on the newest season, they do those quick videos online, or it would actually come on TV, but I think YouTube was starting off back then. It was like the woman's talking like really fast and showing, and then John Locke does this, and then Hurley's sad, and then yeah, those are fun to watch. I still have those on YouTube.
I watched it yesterday. It was a bit of a comedy one. I was watching.
Yeah,
it wasn't serious, but it was quite good. It's a very good way of catching up.
Yeah.
But it was done in a jokey way, but also serious.
Yeah. It's like, oh, and then this person dies. Sad. And
Yes, that's it. We must have watched exactly the same one. Is it a woman? Is it lady's voice?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It was
Yeah.
like seasons 1 through 5, and I couldn't find
Yes,
the final
that's
season
it.
one.
Yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, I couldn't find the finale one, but I saw somebody else do one. And
I did, but as my little background homework, because we only decided we was going to do this about a couple of weeks ago, so I had enough time to go through the whole thing again. I rewatched the pilot, and by that I mean the first two episodes, not rewatching that chap posters or something like that. The pilot in the Oceanic 815. It's a little bit of a joke there. I was going to watch the final episode, never got round to it. Not enough time in the day. And I did rewatch some, which I'll get to later, some YouTube videos and stuff. Some very good YouTube videos. A YouTube channel I can recommend, apart from a Senate podcast.
rewatching that pilot, I forgot all the characters. It was like, well, there's so many people. Like,
Well, you really are. I probably rewatched Lost probably 4 or 5 times since it finished. So, and that's quite, for me, as other people know here, that's quite something.
did you
Yeah,
I
guys
don't
watch
watch
it?
anything if I can help it.
Did you guys watch it while it was on?
Yes.
Like
I
from the
did.
beginning?
Yeah.
Just hooked. I was hooked.
I want to
think-
say towards in the later seasons, I might have kind of got too busy, but I remember definitely watching the final season and then having really nobody to discuss it with, went online and had to look up what all the meaning was, and it was like, oh, that's deep.
It It was still pretty much in the what I call for me. Well, I mean, the internet was around then, but
Yeah.
I didn't actually. I knew there was stuff on the internet, and I knew there was a lot of websites out there, a lot of people discussing it. I, for some reason, never interacted with any of that until after Lost had finished. Then I found these websites. I thought, oh my gosh, if only I was so. I don't know. I wasn't really a social media person at that time. If I was, it could have a really good fun time because there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of fan favorites, a lot of discussions, and a lot of good stuff out there. But unfortunately, I never paid any attention to. I think I was just busy working.
I don't think I started watching it till like third season or something like that. My brother-in-law was into it, and he had like the DVD set, so I think we borrowed him from him and just got caught up when the new season was going to start, which was probably like season 4.
I have all the DVDs as well.
Three? Season 3? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, we got into it. I was like, well, everyone's talking about this show, so let's just.
That's it. It's not like it's one of those shows where literally everybody was talking about it when it first came out.
Yeah, I think this was the thing that coined the term water cooler show, where it was a must talk about show the next day everywhere. And it was just one of those things where it was really super impactful in every way for TV.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was like, well, I'm not going to watch the show. When it came out, I was like, it's got the dude from Party of Five and then not the guy from Lord of the Rings.
Who's the dude from Party of Five? I did watch
Jack.
that.
Jack, yeah.
Yeah, he was the older brother. Yeah.
So did you know?
It's just funny.
I used to watch that show.
So did you know?
I had no idea.
Did you guys know some of the actors and actresses and stuff from other stuff then?
Yeah, pretty much just him and what's the name from Lord of the Rings?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Oh,
And
Dominic. Yeah.
the guy that played Mr. Echo was in other things, and I think that was probably it, right?
Yeah, when I watch some old TV shows, I'm like, hey, I know that person. So, But so I do have just some like quick breakdowns as a reminder, since obviously I was probably the latest one to watch the whole stretch of the season. Steven's rewatched it the most, so. But yeah, I just got a few notes on the seasons.
Can
But
we have
I
a spoiler alert first?
Yes, just spoiler alert
Was
for a
it too
20-year-old TV show.
too long gone now?
I would. I think it's time. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, folks.
If you haven't watched the show, then just go watch it and then come back.
Because talking a new generation here. I mean, we're talking
That's true.
something that ended 13 years ago. So people who are in their teens maybe didn't watch it, or adults now, and streaming TV, it's all there. It's especially. I mean, at the time of COVID, it was probably a perfect time to be like, oh, let me just watch 6 seasons of this show.
Yeah.
Could have caught up on it, but yeah, it was. I got some general notes and awards on it. So it aired September 22nd, 2004, and lasted till May 23rd, 2010. So it looks like it went straight through the 6 seasons. It was created by Jeffrey Lieber, which did the pilot only, which I found interesting, and then it switched over to J.J. Abrams and Damien Lindelof as the kind of 2 creators for it. So they're kind of coined for creating the rest of it. But yeah, Jeffrey Lieber was just I think he just left because they didn't like the way it was going. So
JJ
we want
was a
JJ.
producer on it though, right? The whole time.
Oh yeah, he was still
That
involved the
that
whole
early,
time.
Yeah, because Parkman was in there.
Jeffrey Lieber is definitely coined for the pilot, but then J.J. Abrams took over, and Damien Lindelof.
It's kind of like how on Walking Dead you had the different showrunner in the first couple episodes, and then they left. You had the guy that did Shawshank Redemption, then they switched over producers. That's interesting. Yeah, because there's always the 3 names in the beginning of the episode.
Carlton Cruise. What they call Carlton Cruise?
They got to get it. Yeah, they got to get it to Lieber, and then Abrams and Lindelof just went on to do everything else. Pretty much, they've done a ton of stuff since then, except for Lieber. He really didn't do much after that. But this thing was, at the time, a powerhouse for awards too. So it was nominated for like 54 Primetime Awards with 11 wins, like 54 Saturn Awards, 33 Teen Choice Awards, 17 TCA Awards, 13 Golden Reels. Like this thing was nothing but a powerhouse at the beginning. The most nominated episode was the pilot, which was nominated for 15 and won 8. Through the Looking Glass, the season 3 finale had 9 nominations, and the final episode, the end, has 8 Primetime Emmys and nominated for 8 and won 1. So there's no doubt, and even to me after rewatching it, this has to be one of the biggest, regardless of what people think of the ending. this show has got to be one of the biggest shows of all time, just for viewership, awards, ranking. I think there was a top 100 list, and this ranked number 71. TV Guide ranked it 36 for top TV shows of all time. So, and I think it's true. It really, really is.
I still say this is like the best TV show I've ever watched.
Yeah, honest. I mean, we can talk more about it a little bit later, but yeah, it's after rewatching the whole series back to back, binging. I'm close to, I'm close to agreeing. There might be something that I binged recently that could be better, because this did have a slow season here and there.
Don't be Star Trek.
But when you watch it, it seems confusing until you get to the end, and then it all makes sense. And then this is really a show where it's like you watch the end and you're like, I should go back and watch this whole season, and it really makes a lot more sense. Like the wife, because I watched this with the wife, she was not interested in watching this, but it's such a hook that she started to kind of watch it, and it just connects you and pulls you in. So to see her kind of be like questioning all these theories, oh, here's what's going to happen, here's whose boat it is, here's what's all this, and me where I knew all the big moments already. It was really interesting to watch a first time viewer watch this, get totally sucked in by what is all the mystery threads.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, as I've said before, quite a lot of things. A lot of people were disappointed when a lot of the things were revealed in that last season and stuff. But I've said before, I love mysteries. I don't need answers to everything. So for me, it was the ultimate way of storytelling. I know J.J. Abrams has got a bit of reputation for setting things up and then never ending
mystery
anything.
box.
But I love all that. I love the fan debate, and working things out, trying to figure out what it all means, where things are going, and not having everything spelled out to you. I mean, some things you do need to have things spelled out. I mean, to make things a bit clearer. You don't want everything completely open-ended. But I just loved so many mysteries, so many things to debate. It's just amazing for me.
And I don't think it's had any TV shows since then be so heavily invested, like with fan theories. People talk about, Marvel and Star Wars. There's always these fan theories, but I still feel like Lost, there was nothing like it, where it just had a ton of mysteries and people were really forced to come out together and discuss. Even big shows like Game of Thrones, there really wasn't a ton of mysteries to go out and discuss. You just discussed how good the episodes were. Where Lost brought a bunch of, people who just generally watch basic TV, and they're just like, what does this mean? And that was the hook.
I think Game of Thrones for me is probably the closest thing I can think of off the top of my head in terms of how many series it lasts that's kept me enthralled, like Lost did, and the element of mystery. But a lot of the mysteries weren't as great because there's the books. So you could always find an answer or find a bit of a passage. Lost didn't have any books, so I think there were a couple of books. I haven't looked. I think there actually were a couple of books.
I looked. There's really not. They really don't explore anything outside the TV show, because I really wanted something more.
I think there might be at least one or two. But maybe I was wrong. But yeah, no.
It's not like Walking Dead, where you can go back and look at the comics. Like, oh, this person should have died, or
The Walking Dead was. At least started off a bit like that one, but it didn't really have any mystery, did it? There wasn't really any great mysteries. Nobody really cared how it all happened. But Game of Thrones did have a lot of mysteries and wondering where it's all going to go and stuff, but not the same level as Lost.
I think it had more big events, like the end of the seasons, the Red Wedding, the death of all these characters, the death of, I don't want to spoil again. Game of Thrones.
Spoiler alert.
Like me, I didn't watch a single episode of Game of Thrones until the final season, because my wife is a huge Game of Thrones. She's a huge book reader, and then the show, and she watched it for that, and she absolutely loved it. And she finally convinced me. I was like, okay, fine. I'll sit back and I'll watch everything. And it was probably the most confusing show I've ever watched in my life, because I just have a hard time connecting people and names together. So it's like every time they talked about Stark and all this history and the family and all these family trees, I literally paused it and I turned to look at her and I was like, why is the music swelling around this character reveal? And she's like, that's so and so brothers. I was like, oh, I just don't have the memory to connect it. So I literally had to I screenshotted a family tree from Game of Thrones just to be like, okay, who is this again? I need images of their faces. And I'm like, okay. She's like, be careful with that because they're spoilers. I'm like, okay, I won't scroll down. Jeez. So, but yeah, that was definitely a big show too, again, with a controversial ending. But if it comes to
that's an idea for a future episode.
Well, I don't know if I want to sit down. I'll bring my wife in for that one. I don't know.
Me and Steven were in like a Game of Thrones Facebook group for like a long time.
We were. You forgot. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, now with the new show, it's kind of getting, it's hot again. So not as big as
it yet.
It's not bad. It's a good prequel. The graphics are better. So, but Steven brought it up, like one of the biggest shows ever. And since I've been binging a lot of shows I haven't watched kind of lately, I might put Breaking Bad as like.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that is my favorite. Yeah.
Oh, I never watched it, so I can't say. But no, not before.
I have to say, if you watch it episodic when it was released 1 week, I would probably hate the show because it was just too slow. But when I sat down and I was like, let me watch this, and I watched the whole thing. It was stunning. The second to the last season, I felt like it was starting to jump the shark, but it has one of the best endings personally in all of TV because I like finalized, like, it's not like, and I've never watched Sopranos, but I know people hate the ending because it's open-ended. There's no questions. There's no nothing. This has a finalized ending, which led to a spin-off with Jesse. I haven't watched
that. Yeah, the Jesse thing.
It was, I finished that final episode and then I waited a couple days and then I watched that special with Jesse and it was just so heartwarming. And that's the other good thing. You don't have to wait a year to cool down. You just go from it and then you continue the story and it was so heartwarming to see Jesse kind of bounce back and be his own person. So I would definitely recommend watching that last episode and then watching El Camino with him. I haven't watched Better Call Saul. I've been thinking about that.
I've watched the first couple episodes of the first season.
So
I can't remember that one if I actually watched it or if I just binged it all. Huh.
Yeah. Breaking Bad, watching it all together and seeing it all build, that one might it's I think it's like a short 4 or 5 season. It's nothing crazy. So that one may be my favorite, but watching Lost probably has my favorite season of any series of all times because as we'll discuss here soon, once we get back on track, we're off rail like the Ohio Railways here. But so hopefully everyone's
a little bit off. I was just trying to explain the gravity of Lost and how big it was.
The storytelling too. Like I think those other shows that we mentioned, like, were pretty much affected by how Lost ran because Lost had like episodes where you focused on a character for like but kind of like the whole thing with people complain about Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Like you would have a whole episode dedicated to Jin or dedicated to Claire or something, and you wouldn't see the other characters at all. And you're like,
there's a lot of time where my wife is like, "Where is Saeed?" I'm like, "He's just off." Like, all right, like we'll get back. And then literally he'd walk on screen in like 2 minutes, and it's like, "Oh, Saeed's back" after like 2 episodes. So.
Or you'd have like a whole episode following Penny or something. Like people that weren't even really that central.
Like it gives so much focus to each character. It's amazing, and it's the way they connect. And there's a backstory. Like I really am just gushing out because I don't feel like there's anything since before or after ever written that's so character focused, has so much mysteries, and really gives the time to explore every character. Like the story barely moves, but the characters grow exponentially every single episode.
You had a whole episode of like just the others before you even introduced the others, and what is this that we're watching?
Yeah, it's like that was the start of a season. You have this huge mystery, and then you just jump to the others for like 3 or 4 episodes, and you're like, what about the season finale? So it's good. So you want to, I guess, do quick kind of recaps of each season. This won't be as long as our usual ones, I assume, but I got some reminders here for each season because I definitely want to break down some of the bigger points and see how they connect. I guess we'll kick out. So season 1 obviously starts with a plane crash. So the big story points are the plane crash. This is where they tried to blow up the hatch with dynamite from the Black Rock. I believe they did this right away. And then it ends with the hatch light with Joyerson, Walt, and Michael all taking a raft. So again, that's just like my quick notes, like to kind of like a reminder The hatch kind of lights up in front of who was his name? John's face, and then Sawyer, Jin, and Walt, Michael all take a raft and leave the island. So for the first season, a lot happens, and that's where it's.
Yeah, I don't even remember the hatch being in the first. Huh. Wow.
I kind of forgotten where it ended now myself, but yes, they must have found the hatch pretty. I can't remember now, but they found the hatch reasonably quickly in the first season.
Yeah,
But
it was
They're trying to get down
20
there.
But what about that? I mean, what about the pilot? I mean, I rewatched it recently, and it still holds up.
Oh, yeah. It
to
looks
this day,
great.
very, very well. I mean, I did some of the quick recaps on YouTube, and I was watching some things. Some things didn't look quite brilliant. Most of the stuff involving the smoke monster I found looked a bit.
Yeah,
Didn't look as good as I remembered it back then.
I guess I wasn't there for that.
It was an HD
Yeah,
and 4K back
But the
then.
pilot itself, certainly everything looks just as good. And I'm not. I mean, they spent about. I was looking up some of the facts stuff. Was it 13 million?
Oh, it was the
Yeah,
highest,
14 million. $40 million
most expensive
just on that
episode.
first
Yeah,
pilot episode. And they must have done. I don't know how they did it. They must have got massive bits of plane. Because it wasn't all CGI. It was literally. I think there was literally parts of airplane just broken up and dumped on this beach in Hawaii.
Yeah,
There's so many special. I mean, the dude gets sucked into the engine and
Yes,
then blows
I
up,
was
and then like
Still waiting for that one. Stay away from there. Stay away from there. How
Nobody
is that?
listens
How is
to
that? How is that engine still running?
yeah, I was laughing because I was watching. Then when I forgot her name, the woman that she ends up on the other seasons, but she was like bleeding out. She couldn't. She got air in her lungs, and then Jack's like, "Oh, we need." He's like, "Why don't you do
Oh,
that thing where you
okay.
poke a hole?" He's like, "Okay, well, if you give me a
Yeah,
pen, I
get
can do
pen.
it."
Go get fed. Yeah. Boom.
And then he's
Boom.
gone the rest of the episode, and then
Dumb,
he comes
wasn't
back later. Here, I didn't know which one to pick.
handful of pens. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to get stranded on an island somewhere, Boone and forgotten her name, his sister is probably the last two you want to be.
Shannon.
Shannon. The last two you probably want to be stuck with. It's like Dumb and Dumber, isn't it? Those two.
I mean, how lucky are they? They had a doctor on the.
Yes, exactly. Well, there was no luck involved, as we know. As you go on through time, there's no really any luck involved in anything here. Yes, but that was the whole synopsis. Is that how much of this is? It comes down as the seasons go on. How much it is fate, and how much it is luck, and how much is the fact you realize that there's what is fate, and it was all pretty much designed by one person. How things all came together and happened up, and how you talk about fraud in Star Wars. You're not going off on the task here, but we talk about playing the long game here. This is Jacob and the Man in Black playing a 2,000-year-old game of chess, pretty much.
Did you know? Did you know he originally had a name? Do you know
That's
what
what
his
it's-
name
That's one of the questions I was going to ask
originally
you.
was?
He never ended up with a name. It was so obvious when they did that flashback in the last season.
Was
with
it John?
Edward.
Oh,
No,
Jingleheimer, because you have John Jacob
No.
Jingleheimer.
his name was originally,
Bosch?
and I think it
Is it
fits really
Bosch?
well. No, it's Samuel.
Gosh.
They don't call him Samuel
Yeah.
in the show.
No, it was originally written that his character, which I think is a great name. I was
Yeah.
Samuel fits really well.
Hmm.
So, and what was the Man in White? You just said it. I forgot already though.
Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob and Samuel. I think those are great names for those two.
Yeah,
but
that
you
was
know,
a nice name.
being more like JJ, it's just a bigger mystery, and it creates more talk to just not give the guy a name. So it's like, okay, you're just making mysteries for mystery's sake. So
And they carefully
But,
worded it, didn't they? They carefully worded it in that flashback episode, which is many seasons ahead of where we are now, where they made it so he never actually had to say his name in any of that
listen,
stuff.
boy or son or brother. Yeah, they didn't call him nothing.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, on season one, the cliffhangers were amazing. So, you know, you have this weird island. They have polar bears. That's a crazy mystery. You find a hatch, you know, in the middle of an island. You find a wire on the beach. Black rock. Even that was a great twist because
Mm.
you think it's just a big mountain and it ends up being a pirate ship. And you're like, well, what the heck does that mean now? So I think season 1 and season 2 is probably the best TV I've ever seen in my life because the characters it covers, what it builds on everybody, and all
Everyone's
these crazy
confused.
mysteries.
You know,
Yeah,
including you watching it. You know, like
Yeah,
you're
it's
and we
really
don't get answers for
No.
2 or 3 more seasons, but you get a little stuff, but the mystery's there, and it's really fan interaction. You get to discuss this stuff, and it really does bring people together.
It's really funny. The Black Rock thing's quite funny. It's only literally just a couple of months ago, I was talking to somebody randomly. We were talking about we was talking about old ships and the old armadas and navies and stuff. I don't know, Black Rock came up and I go, Black Rock, I'm pretty sure the name of this famous ship called the Black Rock. I'm sure of it. I know this name from somewhere. I'm sure it's a famous ship. And I got home and I Googled it. It's from flipping Lost, wasn't it? I'd almost convinced myself, such there's enormously of a TV show, that this was a real life famous ship called the Black Rock. So I understand the power of Lost.
Ryan, you just watched season 1. Does Locke immediately walk right when they show him?
Yeah, he.
Okay.
Because remember, they show him wiggle his toes is the first time they show him, and then kind of stand up.
Which when you watch it the first time, you're like, oh, maybe he hurt his legs or something in the crash. But
yeah, you don't even think he's just. Oh, I just want to make sure I'm not paralyzed, type of thing.
No, that was a good. There was some great. Well, not the flashbacks. Yeah, they did really reveal a lot of stuff about the people, and that obviously the Locke thing was obviously a big thing at the time because it never occurred to you at all until that flashback.
Yeah, that was brilliant when he like pushes away from the table, and he's like, "Don't tell me what to do," and he wheels away, and he's in a wheelchair, and you're just like, "What?" And that blows the mystery of the island open too. You know, what is going on? And that's another perfect example of just roping people into just what is happening.
No, I've said this before in other chats, but I absolutely detested Sawyer in the first couple of seasons. Absolutely detested him. And then as time goes on, got to find him to be a sort of a lovable rogue. Although I was totally in Team Jack throughout the whole show. But now just rewatching that pilot, and I realised that actually he wasn't any more meaner than he ever is in anywhere else in the entire show.
No,
it's just that I just took a dislike to him, and I just assumed that he was a bad person who was just going to be trouble all the time and all that kind of stuff. But actually, he's no different in that first episode than he is anywhere else in it. And his little quirks and stuff. And he calls Hurley Lardo.
He's the bad. He's the bad guy that you want to love, with like the heart of gold that he tries to cover up.
He's the Han Solo of the show.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. We could say Jack's a bit of a Han and Sawyer's a bit of a Han, but is Jack probably Lando?
Jack's Luke.
I don't know.
He's mopey.
But you talk about somebody who's mopes and all. I mean, not Walt, Michael.
Mike.
He spends the whole show going Walt.
Yeah.
Oh, was he in Matrix before this? I think that's why I knew him from there too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the second and third Matrix movie. He was the pilot. He was the new pilot.
And that was before.
So, yeah, because I think Dozer.
Tank and Dozer were gone. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Link. He was Link, I believe.
Yeah, he's Link. Yeah.
Because either Tank or Dozer was his brother, and so he felt like he had to take over in Neo. But yeah, he definitely went on to do Matrix, another great set of movies. And he went on to do Matrix.
We could do rewatching that sometime as well. I haven't seen the latest one though. We won't go into that now, but just a quick one. Is it worth watching?
Yeah, if you're gonna to get the whole story, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I gotta rewatch it again. I was pretty hard on it, but
I think the first three are perfect. The fourth one, I personally enjoyed. It got a lot of kickback for the usual internet hate reasons. But it's like my only wish is they make this movie. I wish they would just make another one because they have these open threads and ideas again. It's like, listen, you brought this back after whatever 20 years, and then you just gave us more mysteries. Just finish this second story, and then I don't have to defend this movie so much that it's like they didn't explain this and they didn't explain this, and I'm like, well, yeah, they didn't, but let's just hope we get another movie. Well, like usual,
hopefully it's probably on some of the streaming stuff for free by now, because I wasn't willing to pay to get to see
it. It's on HBO Max.
Yep.
It might remain on HBO Max.
back to the cable on the beach. So that I've forgotten this bit. The cable on the beach must be to the Swan, then, is it? Was that the power for the Swan station under the water? I can't remember what the cable was there for.
Yeah, that's the one that they followed out, and then it went down to. It wasn't the Swan, was it? There was. Okay, so I have a list of all the hatches, so I guess we might as well discuss the hatches so we know what we're talking about. So, and we'll discuss again with later seasons. So we have the Hydra Station, which is Station 1, which is a zoological research station, which is the big one they keep kind of revisiting. There's the Arrow Station, which is a research station for developing defensive strategies against the hostiles. That's the one that the Tailies, which we'll discuss in season 2, that the Tailies were in, that the thing was pretty much shut down for most of it. It was just an empty hatch now. The Swan Station, was an electromagnetic research containment station. And that is, yeah, you're right. That is the one that was that the one that was underwater? I think so. It was destroyed by Desmond.
It's just strange for it to be called Swan, because swans obviously
they
don't go underwater.
Wait, was the Swan the one where they had to keep pushing the number in?
No,
Yeah,
that's wasn't it?
Yeah,
Was it?
that's the one Desmond destroyed because he didn't push the button anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's the weird thing.
What are the rest of them
John-
called?
John's the one that destroys it.
Is
Oh,
it?
the Looking Glass. The Looking Glass is the underwater beacon station
Oh, right,
and
that's the
submarine.
one. Right, okay, so Swan is the one with the numbers there. Well, we haven't got to that bit yet. That's next season.
No.
Discuss the numbers. Yep.
Yeah, so then we have the Flame, which is Station 4, which is a communication station. That's the one destroyed by Locke and has the Russian guy. That's the Flame. Remember
Yep.
the eye patch guy. The Pearl
What's the
is the remote Station 5 with the surveillance station. That's the Pearl with all the TVs.
That's the one under the ground and by that plane. The plane
Yes.
falls on the floor and then they found the hatch.
Yeah.
nearby.
There's the Orchid, which is, again, a lot of these are going to come up later, but just so we know what to call them. The Orchid is Station 6, which is the Botanical Time Traveling Research Station. That's the Orchid.
Greenhouse. Yeah.
The big greenhouse. The Staff was the medical station where they went to took care of Claire.
Oh, yeah.
The door was a dummy hatch, which was really funny. I didn't write that down for notes, but there's like, and that's the other thing. They put all these hatches in here for mysteries, and it's like the door. What's the door? And it's literally just a cargo container just to fool people. Then I mentioned the Looking Glass. Then there's the Tempest, which is only mentioned by name for the toxic gas station. And then the Lamppost is the off-island station used for locating the island. Is the one where Desmond's mom is at with it's the one with the phone occult pendulum in it, which is a pendulum that maps the rotation of the Earth. So, and I knew that because I went to
levitated. It's levitated in the air, wasn't it? Pretty much.
It's swinging back and forth.
Yeah.
But that's a real life thing. It's called, like I said, the phone occult pendulum. There's only a couple of them in the world, and there's one in Wyoming when I used to live in Wyoming. And the way it never swings back and forth. But they can use it to measure the rotation of the Earth and the way that it spins.
You tell me that pendulum is real.
It's a real scientific project. Like I said, the wordage is probably off, but it's something like the Fonsalot pendulum. It's a real scientific experiment used to measure rotation. So yeah, definitely look it up. It's very interesting. I found there's only a hand. They can reproduce them anywhere, but there's only a handful of ever running phone occult pendulums in the world, and it just so happens to be there's one in the least populated state in the United States in Wyoming, and I happen to be there. So very interesting thing to look it up. The spelling's terrible, but if you look up phone occult pendulum, you can learn a little something. That's a real pendulum. They just made it all science, mystery, and crazy theories again. So, but yeah, that was season 1. Again, great season. You did this new thing where you established a ton of characters, explored backstories like never before, and then gave mysteries, interconnecting and weaving all these characters.
Did Boone die in this season, or was that next season?
That should be next season because they haven't discovered.
You're still helping Locke find the hatch and dig the hatch out and stuff.
Yeah, they just remember because Boone's working with John now, so and they find the Swan, or they finally blow it. They try to blow it up. Yeah, they try to blow up the hatch. So, that's when he sees like the light, and he's like,
it's really solid to get in there. There's no doorbell or anything like that.
So season 1 and season 2 are the highest ranked episodes. I think season 1 had a 94% fan ranking, but season 2, when I looked up fan rankings, it's 100%. Like season 2 carried that mystery over perfectly. And then season 3 is where it kind of got off the rails according to fandom, but we'll touch base into that. So season 2.
When's the time traveling start? Is that season 3 or 4? Surely.
We'll get around to it. So season 2, the raft is blown up, and survivors meet. Shockingly, here's some new people, the Tailies. So again, another big thing where it's like everyone on the Tail survived. Well, they didn't really survive, but they survived initially.
That's a great episode when we're introduced to them as well, because it just goes through all those 48 days or whatever it is in like a whole episode.
Yeah, which is great because you're wondering what's happening with the hatch, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? Here's the tailies instead." And it really does go at day 14, day 20, day 48, and all this stuff, and all the stuff like there's explosions, there's signals, there's lights, and they're just suffering out there at the Arrow station. So that
Can I just
again,
while I'm thinking about it, is this does season 2 open? Is that the one that opens with "We make our own kind of music, we make our own special way"? That
I don't
with
think so,
Desmond
because
playing that record?
I
That the We
can't.
Are Everybody. That one?
No,
No.
that's in the first episode.
It
No.
must
They're
be
playing
because
that
then
music,
there's
playing that record, and
big
then
expl- yeah.
and then we find out at the end that he just hears this noise, and then we realise that it's him down the hatch. And there's quite a few episodes I
can't
can remember they start this season. We're completely thrown off course.
Yeah, because that's where we meet Desmond, and like you said, that's another fantastic writing idea where you think you're having, because we do all these flashbacks, you do these flashbacks, and then it's like, no, this isn't a flashback. This is what happened on the island during all this time.
Yeah.
So, but then one of my favorite episodes, the Long Con, where everyone's hiding the guns, and then Sawyer gets the guns back. Like, what an amazing character turn for Sawyer, where he started to be the good guy. Everyone started to love him, and he started to get like all this recognition from the survivors. And he's just like, no, I'm going to be bad because I want to be bad, because he doesn't want good things for himself. And then comes the Long Con, where he screws everybody over. He gets Charlie to beat up Sun. Like, dang, man, get Charlie to beat up Sun. And then he gets all the guns back just so people hates him again, because he thinks he doesn't deserve happiness. And it was really good episode. It moves on to Desmond, where Desmond's introduced, and he's been there for 3 years, pressing the button, as we mentioned, for 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. I think towards the end, Michael betrays the island, kills Ana Lucia and Libby from the tail.
That's a shock episode. Shock, yeah.
And then leaves with Walt. And then also, John refuses to press the button because he's having a crisis, which causes the hatch to explode. So, again, another...
It sort of implodes, doesn't it?
It flashes light in the sky, isn't it? Right?
Doesn't it sort of crash on each other? I can't remember now.
It throws the door over to the island.
That's it, yeah.
It sucked in and blew out. Kind of like, pow.
I saw a fact about that. Do you know that? Where is it to here? Just trying to find it a second. I had it in front of me because everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of the actors and character stuff got to take stuff from the set. And I think it's Lindelof he took the hatch lid.
Oh, really?
Okay.
And he's got it as a coffee table in his house or something.
That's great.
Fantastic. As you do. Because we also got here, we've got Henry Gale, which was, I don't mind, which of course is Help Me Out.
Ben.
Turns out to be Ben, of course, yeah. His introduction doing this whole thing. Is he Henry Gale? Is he not Henry Gale? All that. And he's been tortured by Saeed.
Oh, yeah. The parachute, right?
Yeah.
After what Saeed tortured Sawyer. He tortured Sawyer last season, and that's the thing. I love Saeed, type of thing.
Yes.
And that's great character. Same with Sawyer. I ended up loving Sawyer. And he tortured Sawyer. So one thing I will never do again, because his backstory was he was a torturer and he got out of there because he didn't want to do it. So it's like, I'll never torture again. And then Sawyer's just being an a-hole, and tortures him. And now we come back and he's like, he snaps. And Ben is just such a good character. He's so mysterious. He had all this mystery, super believable. That's the thing. You're like, well, he seems all right. And then he's like, oh my God, he was lying.
Yeah, I know. I totally fell for it as well. It was very, very well done. And he wasn't actually supposed to last that season. And they changed their mind, didn't they? And made him the leader of the others because he wasn't intended to. His character wasn't intended to last into the next season. But it went so well, and they're so impressed with it. They changed the story to fit him in.
Yeah,
it was awesome, absolutely awesome. And of course, so what was the? Can I remember what was the time between pressing the button? How often did you have to press it?
108 minutes.
108 minutes. Right.
So I don't know how he got any sleep. That's
well,
not even 2 hours.
Take turns, didn't they, and stuff? How did they keep getting food down there? Because they must have still got. Because there was those food drops, wasn't there? There was every so often.
Yeah, and he put the suit on.
They got their food from that.
Yeah, because the other guy would go out, Biff Tanner. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, the other guy would go out and get the food and the suits, and that's when Desmond noticed, like, oh, there's a rip in his suit, and being lied to.
Oh, actually, he was telling him that there's still radiation and stuff out there, which hadn't been for donkey's ages. Yeah.
Yeah, but then another huge, like we mentioned, Michael betraying the island. Like, man, Michael was a real villain, man. I was just like, man, this freaking jerk. Like, you get so invested in these characters, and that was the other thing where it's Lib. You finally see happiness with Libby.
Yeah, Hurley and Lib.
Yeah, which I think Hugo is probably overall my favorite character.
Yeah.
But you finally see happiness with him, and then she freaking gets shot, and Hurley blames himself, and it's Michael. So you're like, oh, I hate Michael.
Yeah. I think, when we talk about characters, Michael's an interesting one. At times, there's quite a few characters at times you're like, oh, I hate them, I can't stand them, what they do in this was stuff. But I mean, overall, there's always also times you're thinking, actually, go Michael, go, Sawyer, that kind of stuff. I say Hurley's backstory, when you get that flashback, that's a hilarious flashback, I have to say, when we win the lottery and all that kind of stuff. Very funny.
Again, a big mystery with just random numbers. So. Oh, and Mr. Echo ended up really being a really good character.
I loved Echo. I was disappointed that he got killed off. And that was a bit of a sort of a difference of opinions, wasn't there? I think between the actor and the because they didn't actually intend to kill him off, but then he said he wouldn't want to come back. I think so. They ended up.
Yeah, just had other stuff to do and didn't want to do it. So like, okay, we'll just kill you off. It's like, oh man.
Because he could have really been, if he stayed in there, I think he would have been a really significant character. Because he seemed to really clock what was going on and what needed to be done and stuff a lot quicker than Locke, really.
Yeah, and he has a really good backstory too. Like to see that unfold. Seasons.
Epic one, yeah. Epic
where
one.
He was supposed to join, I guess, you don't want to call it a gang, whatever it is. He's supposed to join the bad guys in his country, and his brother was supposed to join. Well, he goes and kills the guy instead. So to save his brother becomes a priest. He goes to go smuggling things in and out of the country, and then he goes to leave, and then his brother saves his life, and then now everyone thinks he's a priest, and he's got to live with his mistake. And it's like, what a bunch of back and forth for him, where he had a great, nice, deep story, and it ends up his brother is the one that crashed on the island in the plane. Like, what chances,
And there was drugs in the sort of Virgin Mary kind of statue and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, you think about it, not just the characters in the show, but their backstories were so rich. And once you look back and you go to see those flashbacks again, you realise how things are being set in stone and why Jacob was sort of lured to, after he'd chosen them, which you see later in the series, and touched them basically. What happens to them after that is predestined. It all leads to the island, to them eventually ending up in the island. So after that point, they didn't have much choice.
This season felt to me like I started realizing, this is a comic book. Like we're watching a comic book unfold on screen, because you got like these like one-off, episodes that are like showing backstories, and it's like you're reading like a one-shot comic of like, okay, this is Mr. Eccles back, so like, and then everything just ends up tying together. But like,
origin explored.
Yeah. And it just adds to everything.
There probably was a divide of fans, which we probably haven't got to now. It started off as a drama mystery, didn't it? And then at some point, you might call it jump the shark or stuff. There was a completely different. Once people realised that it wasn't just a mystery drama, there was some other sci-fi elements or supernatural elements to it. That divided the crowd a little bit. So I don't want to be watching that kind of stuff.
Or people thought it was like a soap opera on an island, basically, and then it turned into this other scientific-y, spiritual thing, It's like Star Wars turned into a soap opera.
and then I think the ending where you got to see a really great character change for John in season 2, because he went from being the true believer of the button, where Jack was like, I'm not going to push the button, John. You push the button. So to see this, I think the episode is called like Man of Science, Man of Faith.
Yeah.
Because Jack is like, no, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's not real. And John believes. Well, by the time we get to the end, when John starts to realize like things are kind of being manipulated, there's other corporations involved. He starts seeing, because that's where they discover the pearl. You know, the look where they start to see all the cameras, and they're told you're just an experiment to push this button. And then people question, well, maybe the experiment is to watch people do the experiment to see if you record the experiment. And that's the great thing where they send the books off through the air tube that gets sucked away.
Yeah,
That alone was a mystery. Where are they going? Where are they going? And then they just end up in a pile out in a mountain. Like, how heartbreaking, you know? Where it's just twist and kick. But yeah, so now John has this change of character where it's like he feels like he's been taking advantage because his big thing is, don't tell me what to do. I'm a believer. I have a reason to be here because him and the couple, Bernard and
She's the one that needed the pen in the first episode.
Rose? No,
Rose.
Rose. Yeah, it's Rose. Where
Yeah.
she's revealed she believes John because she's like, listen, I got cancer, so this island is magical. Because nobody believes John that this island's special. But he starts to lose his faith, and then he doesn't push the button. And guess what? John is wrong. Like, his faith was right. The whole thing goes to hell. I think season 2, this was a background on my PSP for a long time. I believe season 2 is the first time they kind of were late pushing the button with our current characters. And you see the door drop and the black light kicks on.
Yeah.
And like that mystery, like that was stunning to me to see all these that teased more hatches. And
The map.
you can't figure out what's going on, just throw a hatch in.
It shuts on his leg, doesn't it? On Locke's leg, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's because they go into lockdown and then he can't press the button and then he sees the blacklight painting, which is just, again, another huge mystery. And John starts to doubt his existence, and it ends up that the hatch was right. The hatch was real. It was doing something important, and it failed.
Yeah, because Locke
And
had
another
went.
huge thing.
Locke had went and looked for the cabin already, right? Did you?
No, I think that's later.
I
I mean,
thought
I don't know. There's some big episodes and a lot to discuss.
Because this was the others. It wasn't.
Yeah, this is more the introduction of a lot of things kind of. Maybe we
But
could
not
touch
Ben,
more
though,
on
right?
stories.
Ben didn't show up yet, did he?
I think they start to discuss because remember the raft blows up at the beginning, so they start to look into the others a little bit more. But yeah, so again, season 2 was I think the highest rated season.
Yeah.
And then we move into season 3, which is the lowest rated season because people don't like answers. So, so season, and it does get confusing. So season 3, this is the one where after the hatch blows up, Desmond travels to the past and is now living 2 lives. So he's living his life in the past and living on the island at the same time. So this where it really starts to get, instead of weird, quirky mysteries, it starts to get super science fiction. So he's living 2 lives.
It gets all timey-wimey.
Yeah, Kate and Sawyer are with the others, with the polar bear cages. This is where the others really start to get explored. So this is the polar bear episode. And then it's explained, we just have polar bears here because we brought them here. There's no big weird mystery. The polar bears didn't appear from the comic books. You know, that was the big thing because remember Walt. It's like there's a polar bear in that comic book. Maybe they came alive from the comic book. No, they were just brought there for science reasons. That's it. Simple explanation. You just blew it up too much. So
but that's the great thing about it, though. Just those things like the polar bears and stuff, and the boars. There's wild boars, wasn't there, as well? Just created so much debate and just added to the mystery, really. And there wasn't a lot to it in the end, but it was still a great ride. I mean, if you can get the answer right, you can get the answer too quickly when the mystery doesn't mean anything. Whereas you can let that mystery creep on with little tantalizing clues along the way. It makes it a whole lot more richer and
sometimes the biggest mysteries and scare stuff is like nothing. It's like there's noises outside. Like what's that banging?
It's like it was when you were in the dark.
There's a tree branch in the window. You know.
you get any scene. You watched, I don't know, a comedy show where the canned laughter in the background, and then set it in the dark. Well, it could be a completely different, completely different thing, and you will hear and see and sense all different things. But there's nothing going on. But the absence of information and that mystery just really makes every scene a lot more.
It's like a kid, they're in their bedroom in the dark, and like they hear noises, they think there's a monster in the closet or under their bed, and like no, something just fell. So it's mysteries that are common, but I mean, yeah, I can imagine being on an island. You're gonna come up with so many crazy theories of things, you know.
Yeah, especially the smoke monster, as we'll explore more of that. I guess we didn't touch on that with season 1. Everyone's like, is it dinosaurs? Is it? And they really did kind of make it look to be like a real big monster.
Mhm.
We haven't
Especially
even
in that,
touched the smoke
especially
monster.
in that point, it's literally going around and great big trees are moving and swaying all over the place. And it had a lot more noise to it then. I think they spoke about that.
You can hear footsteps and
Ninja Pop
stuff.
and stuff and things that because they had that noise like sort of stuff. And
Yeah, the ticking
what
and the
was
gutter
that?
noises.
And like,
Is more
was
like
it a
just
mechanical thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really still not to this day. I've read things about it, still not quite sure what that mechanical sound. I think maybe the smoke monster created it as a sort of a mystery to disguise what it was, because there was never mechanical about it at all.
Yeah, no, it was revealed in the last season what it was. So it was 100% the man. It was the Man in Black.
Yes.
Remember, he got thrown into the source
Yes.
and turned into pure evil.
Yeah, I meant the sounds that were actually made
Oh.
by the smoke monster, the sort of mechanical sounds. But things were blowing up and stuff. But I was reading about this stuff was when it was going through all the underground tunnels and stuff that were back from the Egyptian era and that kind of stuff. So that's why we got lots. Things were blowing up when it was chasing things, because it was going up and down the tunnels, which it quite often used to get around the island without being so visible, apparently.
Yeah, and but yeah, he definitely had, and they really weren't sure what they were going to be because he had a mechanical noise. He was like sparkling with lightning.
Yep.
Oh, and the other thing we've got to cover at the end of season 1, the other big giant mystery when they're sailing around the island, or either the beginning of season 2, they see the foot of the statue. And Saeed says, "I don't know what's concerning, the fact that the statue's not there, or the fact that the statue has 3 or 4 toes." And you're just like, what does it mean? It's another mystery.
It's an ancient civilization of aliens.
Yeah.
And that never, to be fair, for the whole, we only got hints about all that. We never actually, because they, even in the time travel stuff, they never went back to the Egyptian period.
They kind of did whenever they explored the Man in Black and Jacob's story.
Oh, yes, they did a little bit in that one, yeah. But that statue was fertility. Wasn't it fertility god or something?
It was, and I only kind of remember this because I watched Moon Knight from Marvel, but it's like that alligator god. So it was a big alligator. So whatever that represents, it might be death. I don't know. Death is Anubis, but yeah, it's the alligator god. So, and it just didn't have the simple question was, it wasn't a human. It was a god they worship that just didn't have the same amount of toes as us. So that was the ultimate reason. Do you remember how the statue got knocked down?
Oh, was it Black Rock?
Yep, you're right. Yeah, it was Black Rock and the arrival of who? Who arrived in Black Rock?
Richard,
yep. Mr. Guyliner, yep. So he's an amazing, mysterious character too, and he grows a ton in those last few seasons. But yeah, you're absolutely another great story.
That's something like
everything kind
of. Yeah, I still can't work out. We ain't got to that bit yet. Even to this day, I still can't work out in the episode where Jacob and Richard sat down on the beach and Jacob goes, "Do you want a job?" "Yeah." "What would you most want in the whole wide world?" No, I can't do that. I can't bring your wife back." "Okay. Give me what's the next best thing that you really want in the whole wide world?" I mean, I'll be thinking lifetime supply of chocolate or something like that. He goes, "I don't ever want to die." "Okay, there we go. You know that. Now you can do my stuff." Well, I can't work out what the hook was for Richard on that one.
I think it was something. Because remember, he did something against his wife, and he was shamed for it. And he's like, and he wasn't forgiven. Because remember, they're like, "You'll never be forgiven. You're going to hell." And he's like, "I want the time. I want to live long enough to be forgiven." And Jacob just apparently took that as, "You're immortal now."
Yeah.
Well, he never.
And why don't you explain? Yeah, why don't you explain the world to me? And he was his, connection to everybody.
Okay.
Another just great character.
Going back to the crocodile god, it's called Sobek, and it was a god of fertility. So
Yay!
Crocodile head and human body. So.
Because they all had problems with giving birth, didn't they? Obviously, going back thousands of years. That's
true.
That's still to do with the electromagnetic thing. I don't think the iron was stopping people giving birth, but there was a very low, extremely low birth rate, wasn't there, because of the the light
Yeah.
and the electromagnetic stuff.
Yeah, so at the time they're like, let's pray to the god of fertility, which is an alligator, because
Mm-hmm.
alligators are so fertile, I guess.
I suppose so. Yeah.
So, and then continuing on with more season 3, we have Locke destroys the submarine because remember he's now. I think this is where he starts working with Ben or Jacob, one of the two, because he feels like nobody should leave the island. So he blows up the submarine, and this is where we start to get. There is a boat that they find, and we get the legendary scene of it's Penelope's boat, and it's not
Yes.
Penelope's boat because this is where they go down. To what the Orchid? No, not the Orchid. The whatever the underwater station is. What I call
Yeah.
it, the Looking Glass. They go down to the Looking Glass, and you have a fantastic character sacrifice. To kill him off, and it's great to actually. I love character sacrifices. I really do, especially when you have such a big cast and to introduce characters all the time. To have big, meaningful sacrifices makes you connect so much.
Mm.
And it's just a legendary scene where you see this Penny trying to
Yeah.
reach out to Desmond.
Yeah.
And then the Russian guy,
Yeah. I still keep using that
The Russian
meme now. Yeah.
You always use that meme.
Not Penny's boat meme. Yeah. Mime, should I say? I keep calling them meme, but mime. Yeah. I can't get enough.
No.
of it.
no,
Yeah.
still meme.
It's meme. Yeah.
Meme. Yeah. I still
Yeah,
say
this-
mime. It's meme. Yeah.
GIF, GIF.
GIF,
no,
GIF.
Jif. Yeah.
Jif is
Mime,
peanut butter.
potatoes,
Just kidding.
potatoes.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it goes from that shocking moment to kill a fan favorite character like Charlie, then to an even bigger shocking moment, which might be, again, one of the most shocking moments in history, where we've been watching all these flashbacks the entire season, and you're like, man, these characters look weird. When did Jack have a beard? Why does everybody look like this? And then it realizes, and this is the main season where you got to go back and you got to watch the whole thing again, because we end with Jack talking to Kate, and you're just like, when did these two ever meet? And Jack says, we have to go back to the island because it's revealed that it's been flash forwards the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And what a mind job that was to just
Mhm.
be. Nobody expected it. Nothing like that has ever been seen on TV where you're just like flashback, 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 flash forward. And you're like, oh my God. So
Do you think a lot of
Un-
TV shows copied these kind of flashback and flash forwards? It didn't seem to be.
Oh,
there was
yeah,
a lot
it
of
did.
that
It
before
wasn't-
this, before Lost.
Flash sideways. So yeah, they didn't. Nobody did that before. Lots of
Yeah,
that's
that's-
what I can
that's-
recall.
so inventive where it was great like that. So
Wasn't that because the flashes were because of the hatch, right? Because the hatch. blew up?
no, that had to do with sending Desmond back through time.
Oh, okay.
It really was just flash forwards that they were rescued from Penny's boat, and that was the big mystery. They kind of felt like they told enough backstory. They're like, okay, let's tell what happens, because they knew that was the whole thing. Let's get to the beacon to send out a signal to try to get the boat. The boat's coming, and the mystery is, are we going to get rescued? And it's like, yeah, some people do get rescued. As we soon find out, only 6 people got rescued, which is the lead-in
Oh,
for the
season
next. Yeah. So season 4 is again mostly flash forwards. We come to learn that only 6 people survived, quotation marks, survived the crash, which is Jack, Saeed, Hurley, Kate, the baby Aaron, and Son. Which again, we don't know what happened to everybody. We just know that those are the only 6. So that was season 4's big mystery, is what the heck happened to everybody.
What happened to Jin? That's what I was wondering.
Mm.
So, and remember, it's Jin blew up on the boat trying to get her off because they had to. Again, I think we're flashing back and forth in this one, mostly the old flash forwards, but again, a great story with Jin where he's kind of a real jerk, a real hardhead at the beginning. He just really kind of grew into a loving character type
Yeah.
of thing, and he stayed back on the boat so everyone can get off while he tries to defuse the bomb. And we meet jerk Michael again, where Michael's trying to get everyone back.
Mhm.
Where he's back on the boat, but yeah, he tries to save everybody because the bomb that's on there. I don't remember who put the bomb there.
Oh, that was
Can't
already
remember.
on there, wasn't it? By the crew. When the crew crew had the bomb on it.
Was it that
They were
crazy
going to
military?
blow stuff up, weren't they? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, so season 4, They introduced the freighter team, which was Frank the Miles, that talks to dead people. Daniel Faraday, who went crazy because he tested on himself. And I like the redhead girl who they just killed off. So John becomes the leader of the others. Ben goes to the Orchid to turn the giant wheel. Remember, he goes underground, he turns the wheel, and we come to learn that the wheel is apparently the only way to get off the island, and it teleports you to the desert. So that was really weird, like connects you to there in the desert, which I find interesting as they do it more and more. I think John goes back. Ben goes.
The desert is one of the exit points. I think there aren't ever exit points, if I remember rightly, but we only see, because it was said there was more than one exit point, but this is the exit point, that one of the ones that Whitmore had. CCTV stuff on.
He had cameras on it, so if anybody ever appeared in that spot, he would send his people out. So we had Faraday. Ben goes to the Orchid, and then the shows how the Oceanic Six escaped with the ship blowing up and killing Jin, and then the flash forward reveals that Locke also snuck off the island, because remember there's a big mystery of who's in the coffin.
Oh yes,
and it was like
they
we're not talking.
They had a code word for him, didn't they?
Another huge, shocking ending where
kept calling him somebody else. Yeah, we didn't know who they were talking about.
So but like it's mostly flash forward where their lives are and stuff like that. Saeed is working with Ben now to hunt down Whitmore and his team to protect the people on that. So ended up the big story was these 6 got off the island to protect the others on the island, and then the island disappeared because did they turn the wheel again or? Oh yeah, if you turn the wheel, the island teleports, and then the user is kicked off the island.
Ben turned the wheel, didn't he? Yeah, he turned the wheel to save it so he can move the island.
And it disappeared. So they were going back to save everybody, and that's when the island disappeared. So those 6 on the helicopter kind of crashed in the ocean and survived. And then they made up their story that only we survived because there's a big mystery that everybody was accounted for because they found the plane underwater, and it was Whitmore High.
Paid for the plane to be crashed and all his bodies.
Because Whitmore didn't want anyone to find the island.
Yeah.
So season 4 was again. There's a lot of good shocks. It kind of felt like a main. I think 4 and 5 were like floaters. It had some good mystery, but it got crowded with like the introduction of like Daniel Faraday and all his team, and Miles is now a mind reader, even though Miles ended up being really fun. And Daniel Faraday really helped explore the scientific-y stuff with the show.
Yeah.
So, but then another character. What we thought was the death of Jin, which he actually didn't die. So great this time. So season 4, again, I don't think there was a bunch on it. So I don't know if you remember anything else other than that. But again, it was a shock to see flash forwards in this. And then the death of John in the island, which is explored in season 5. So this is where season 5, again, this is better as a binge because season 5 got too confusing because now season 5 split into 2 timelines. So we have Sawyer and survivors travel back and forth through time, and then they end up in 1974 with Dharma. So season 5, because it fills in a lot of blanks. Like, what is Dharma? What are they doing? Well, let's travel back in time and see all the buses and see all the stuff and polar bears and the building of all these hatches. So it's a good season, but again, it gets kind of confusing with the time travel. Works better as a binge. And then John turns the giant wheel to return to the Oceanic Six because he goes back to convince them to return to the island. And then it's also revealed that Ben kills John, and he actually kills John, which isn't revealed till season 6. But where he strangles John with a cord because John's like
shot him.
Yeah, that is such a heartbreaking thing because he's going to commit suicide. Then Ben comes in and talks him out of it, and then he happens to reveal a juicy bit of information that Ben didn't know. So he kills him. He kills him. Well, I shouldn't laugh really. There's nothing funny about it at all. because Locke was absolutely heartbroken at that point. They'd gone back to try to convince everybody to come back to the island. Completely failed miserably. Nobody cared enough about him or anything like that. He goes to commit suicide. Oh, he is actually half dead, pretty much, hanging by the rope when Ben comes in. Ben cuts him down, says, "Oh, Ben, no." Ben's like, "Oh, you really shouldn't be like this. Nothing. It's not that bad. Everything's all fine. No, we can work together and solve this thing." And then Locke drops a bit of information, which I can't remember what it is, that Ben didn't know. Tell him how to get back to the island, and then Ben kills him. It's terrible. It's shocking.
Yeah, that one was pretty crazy. And it's not revealed to, I think, season 6 that he actually did. You think it's like, okay, he returned to the island and he came back to life because they bring his body back. And it's like, oh wait, no, he really is dead, and he's now just his body and his form is taken over by the Man in Black. And you're like, oh wow, John's actually dead. Okay, that's weird.
I do remember this time online. I didn't pay much attention to the online stuff. I don't know why, but I think people used to call this Flock, fake Locke. So he's called Flock.
Did they?
This time, yeah. But it wasn't obvious at the time that it was to start off with that it wasn't really Locke. But there was definitely something off about him.
Yeah, and then the Oceanic Six get back on a plane to try to crash again. And this is where it's funny because the pilot Frank is the pilot of the plane, and he looks in the back and he's like, "Oh man, what's gonna happen?" So I thought that was pretty funny.
I can't remember where they were going to because we're not going to blah blah blah, are we?
Yeah, and like Hurley buys out almost all the seats because he's like, "Well, I'm not going to risk anybody else's life." So so they fly back. So when they fly back, Sun and John. So again, the body crashes. Sun and the body of John appear in 2007. So their actual time where they're at in the island. So they go to 2007. But then Jack, Kate, and Hurley, Saeed, they travel back to 1977, where Miles and Sawyer are pretty much build a life for themselves. So and where they go to live. So they suddenly return. And it's interesting to see Sawyer with whatever girl that was. He hooks with her, and Sawyer's doing good for himself. He's forgiven himself. He's trusted amongst the others. He's trying to help people. He's like a security guard type thing. So it's good to see Sawyer doing good for himself. And then Jack comes back, and Jack screws it all up again, ruins everybody's life because Jack wants to go back to the island, and Jack wants to, and I'll touch more on it later. But like Jack wants to make it all about himself and just ruins everybody's good life. And then it moves on to Daniel Faraday says that they have to detonate the bomb to stop the plane from crashing because they got that big leak
debate, wasn't it? Do we detonate it? Do we not detonate it? And all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
and then Juliet. Oh yeah, that's her name. Juliet activates the bomb because they drop the bomb. It doesn't blow up. Juliet has to sacrifice herself, which is heartbreaking for Sawyer because he finally has a life that he loves. So Juliet activates the bomb. It's revealed that John is dead, and the smoke monster convinces Ben to kill Jacob. So, which we think that it's John convincing Ben. He's like, you got to do your own thing. You got to do your own thing. And it's like, nope, gotcha. I'm actually the Man in Black, and I wasn't allowed to kill Jacob. So I got Ben to do it. So poor Ben getting manipulated again to go complete someone else's stuff.
That was terrible, but I understand. You can see exactly. I mean, I understand this. I understand the plot. The plot is perfect. There's nothing wrong with the plot. The execution wasn't as good. I mean, just the conversation that Jacob comes across as a bit of a, quite frankly, in that scene, doesn't he? Because he's just like, yeah, what about you, Ben? But he's manipulating. Himself manipulates him because he wants him to stab him, which seems like the bizarre thing that you could ever wish for, really. But Jacob just suddenly appears. The first time we've seen him, really, at that point, or second or third time. I can't remember. We've had the flashback episode since then. And then he's like gets stabbed and he's gone in like space of an episode or something like that. The big time we see Jacob is through flashbacks and his ghost remains.
Yeah,
but, it just seemed like such a after all the setup, and I can understand why Ben would want to kill Jacob, but Jacob just turned out to be a bit of an ass, and goes out like a poof in that, just like that, for what he did, like no good reason. But it is all part of the big Thrawn long game that's being played here.
Yeah, because it's the two brothers. He was never allowed to kill his brother, so he finally was able to get someone to do it, to take over the island, because the Man in Black wanted to escape, and it's almost like Pandora's box. He wanted to escape and pretty much spread. He hated humans. Like, he wanted to spread evil throughout, because he's seen the evil in the past that they did with pillaging. So he's like, I'm going to spread and I'm going to kill humanity. And it was the point of the island and Jacob to keep him trapped there, type of thing, so he couldn't escape. And he finally was able to get his brother Jacob killed. And yeah, and I don't feel like that one had a big shocking thing other than like Jacob dying. I don't feel like that one had a big shocking ending.
I never realized that episode's like Mortis on Clone Wars. They're trying to keep the bad one there.
Yes. the father, the daughter, and the son.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very much like that in many ways.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
let's see,
Star
season
Wars
5.
For those wondering what the heck we're on about.
But yeah, it was good, because again, it's like, this is again one of those seasons where it's better as a binge, and I think that's why it was kind of confusing for people, because we really did travel back and forth between time, and it's like, what is actually happening, type of thing.
I think this was like the one season where they didn't show any repeats. Like everything was like, because they couldn't, because I remember reading something where they're like, it would have confused everybody too much if they would have reshown episodes. Yeah, so they just didn't air an episode that week if there was something going on. They didn't show a rerun. Huh. Yeah, because that would be super confusing. All the timelines. Like, wait, why is this guy back now?
Yeah, so Juliet activates the bomb, I guess would be the big thing. And then that takes us to season 6, where it all comes together and where people, again, don't like the answers. So not only did we have flash forwards, we now have sideways or alternate flashes, sideways flashes, where the plane never crashed. And then it actually ended up the bomb didn't work, and they were still in 1977. And then Juliet dies in Sawyer's arms, all because Jack is spoiled and greedy again. Like, to see them two fall apart, where it's like you see the fandom go from Sawyer is kind of a jerk but a heart of gold to just Jack being a total jerk type of thing. And he's like, you know what? I think I'll be the king of the island now. I was the chosen one, right? And he had all this I'm the leader stuff. And when he was the leader, if people didn't listen to him, he would get mad and stuff like that. So he goes, and they have to choose. And the point of the 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42 numbers is that those are the seat numbers or whatever it was of the people on the plane. And it was who was going to be next to take over the island, because pretty much Jacob expected to die. He needed someone to replace him.
Well, it was even more random than that, because Jacob had literally just taken the list of names and then just signed numbers to the names, and it just happened to be the number that they got. And there was nothing more to it than that.
In the lighthouse, yeah.
Yeah. It was actually, and he just went to this cave down the side of the cliff, which is got on that wooden ladder, which has got to be, who would want to do that? I don't know. I've just scribbled it down on a piece of paper myself. But he went down the side of this cliff, down this little wooden thing, into this little cave where he had all the numbers up, and he was crossing them off as a candidate died.
Yeah, or they weren't doing good enough. So, but yeah, so people kind of died there, and it just ended up revealing that the alternate side. Well, we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, it was so Jack becomes the leader of the island, but then Jack sacrifices himself, which, as much of a jerk he is, he had a good sacrifice. He sacrifices himself, and then he passes his leadership onto the best choice, Hurley. So there was always this fight. Who's going to be the leader? Is it going to be John? Is it going to be Saeed? Is it going to be, Kate? Is it going to be Jack? No, I don't think anyone really kind of considered Hurley, because he stayed in the background. But then when you look back, it was like he was always the best choice to be the leader of the island.
Absolutely, yeah. The bit more of a shocker was his deputy win. It's a bit like Darth Vader being chosen as the deputy, isn't it?
Yeah, he chooses Ben.
Ben, yeah.
Much like Jacob chose Richard because Richard could tell Jacob about humanity, Hugo could let Ben tell him about the island, because Ben knew so much. He wanted to be worthwhile. He's given his life away. And Hurley recognized that. And he's like, you know what? You can be my number 2. You just don't have to wear eyeliner.
I think So, but against the finale thing, the only thing that's slightly disappointed me, I still think the finale is perfect. I've no real big quibbles about it, like other people have online, saying, "Oh, it's all right until that's it." That as you get these days, that last episode was rubbish. No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I do wish that the confrontation battle between Jack and Locke was a bit more epic than it was. We had really bad camera shaking for the supposed earthquake that was going on in the island, and it rained.
Yeah.
And it's a bit dark, and they basically grappled a couple of times, a few fisticuffs, and there wasn't really much else. I would have liked a bit not like Revenge of the Sith, Anakin versus not Obi-Wan, not quite all
Well,
that,
trying to
running
have
around the
lightsabers.
whole island, battling and stuff. No, but I would have liked a bit more. It did feel like that build up to the good versus evil sort of thing never really wasn't quite as epic as it could have been.
Yeah, it was definitely like a big final fight type of thing. So
Yes,
it was just two regular
we've got
guys.
that competition. I just wish it was a bit more epic.
They needed swords
I think-
and fight on top of the Black Rock. It would have been.
Well, yeah, with dynamite. But there's some great scenes in that because that's in the last season as well. It's that one with Jack and Richard with the stick of dynamite in the Black Rock, and there's something Jack's faith has turned now, and he's more believing, and he's like, "There's nothing's going to happen with this dynamite." Lit dynamite there. Nothing's going to happen, and Richard at that point doesn't believe it because he's sort of lost his faith in it all. That was an epic moment as well. I think the sideways thing, everything in Lost. I'm all right with the time travel, the finale, and all that kind of stuff. I like the epic battle wasn't between good and evil, wasn't quite as epic as I wanted. That's all fine. The sideways stuff, when it's revealed what it is, even now when I rewatch the stuff, I'm still a little bit bored with the sideways stuff because I know that it really is not. It's all about people meeting up and reconnecting and that because that doesn't
it's
really
not
add to the
real,
story.
Yeah.
Doesn't have this, not like the flashbacks and flash forwards where they told you a whole lot of other stuff about people, what happened. The sideways are really basically nothing in particular. None of it really matters. It's just about people connecting up. I didn't really connect with them the first time round, and I connect with them even less now that I know that they really are nothing in particular. So that's about the only element of Lost for me, which just fell a little bit, just lost its little bit of Lost.
It wasn't big. It wasn't big enough, right?
No, it wasn't big enough. I think they could have. Well, they've obviously decided that's what they were going to do, but it didn't have the same gravitas as the flashbacks and the flash forwards.
You think it would have worked better if they
It's
would
like-
have showed all that stuff like after at the end?
No, I would have sooner they just spent the time on the island because we had so much of that sideways stuff. We missed a lot of the what could have been that, as I say, that more epic build up to good versus evil and that kind of stuff. But yet we got all this time wasted in somebody's sense on sideways stuff that didn't really matter in the end. But
Well,
just,
if you go back and rewatch the whole, after you see the final, the very finale of it, it makes a lot of sense of the sideways flashes. Because I guess we could touch on the finale now. So I think the problem with the finale that people hate it is realistically they just didn't understand it. I don't think they truly because they asked the question, was the island real? Like, did it happen? What did it all mean? What was the point of the sideways flashes? And it's explained by Jack's father. It's a play. When I rewatched it, because I remember watching it and then I had to go online and really someone broke it down and I was sitting there, I remember hiding in work trying to figure out what the heck happened, finding a discussion, and someone's like, listen, here's what it means. Like, and it means that the finale, when everybody meets at the end, people were still asking, well, so the island wasn't real then? And I'm like, no, it's plainly said by Jack's dad.
exactly.
Yeah.
I almost had it.
I thought it was quite
Yeah,
clear
it's like-
in the episode myself. I thought it was quite clear.
Yeah, he said it happened. He's like, everything on the island happened. All this for season 6, all these sideways flashes, which were confusing, and all this again, this is where 5 and 6 is great as a watch this season, realize the finale, and then watch it all again with open eyes and open mind, and you're like, oh, it all makes sense. They're doing all these flash sideways, and it's like the flash sideways is the plane didn't happen, but really it's they all died at random points throughout time, and all these flash sideways were them finding their path in the afterlife, and then they all meet in the afterlife. So that was the big thing: is the island happened. All these mysteries and science fiction, that's real. It's just that it was, quote, the biggest moment in their life, and they all wanted to move to the afterlife together. So
I tell you, I really
People-
hope it's not a sideways in the afterlife. I'm going to take a long time trying to find my connection and stuff.
yeah,
So
so
they
you-
actually
you
did.
die,
They
you
actually
imagine
did
that
leave the
dying.
island and come back, right?
Well, just imagine
Like,
dying and then
little-
have
Yeah.
to spend the whole season trying to find your way to heaven.
yeah, so they actually did leave the island. They
They came
returned
back
to
to
the
life
island.
essentially. Yeah.
They actually time traveled, and
Mhm.
you know, people died at different times, but by the way the afterlife works, they all meet up. And even with Hugo, when it's revealed to be lived probably 100 years or whatever it may be, he still died and he passes the island. Oh, that was so touching, where he's like, you were a great number one, and he's like, well, you were a great number two. So that was just a super touching scene.
And because
And-
they all know at the same age that they were at that point, because it's all about, well, apart from the fact would have looked a bit silly, perhaps de-aging and aging was not really a big thing at that time, but because that was the most significant time of everybody's life, so they all know at the same age
You get
that
to
they
pick your
did
avatar.
at that time.
Yeah. So I think that was the big thing, where it really went into kind of show the way that the mass of the populace thinks, where they just didn't get it. And you have to sit back and you have to really deeply think about it. Like, okay, these people all died at different times, but they met in the afterlife at the same time. So whether they, like Boone and Shannon, where they died early on, they died in like the first or second season, they still went to the afterlife and they met at that exact, because time doesn't matter in the afterlife. So they met at that exact point. And then there's Hurley, who lived 100 years or whatever it may be. And then he met. And then there's Jack, who died right at the end and sacrificed himself. And he met. And he's the one that was like, I don't understand this afterlife. And it had to be explained to him. And that was the big thing, is everything that happened on the island happened. Like, that was the big surprise. Everything you experienced, the time travel, it all happened. The island was never, what did they call it? It wasn't hell and it wasn't heaven type of thing. It wasn't, you weren't floating in space. The sideways flashes was,
I mean, they could have went back as the Oceanic Six and just stayed there. They didn't have to go back.
yeah, they could have lived, but
Yeah, they
Jack convinced everyone to return and crash again because Jack's
Well,
Jack.
plus all their lives were actually get worse, weren't they, off the island?
Yeah.
As I seem to
But it's
remember.
like karma.
Well, like,
You know.
yeah, Hurley was doing good because he was actually kind of lucky. Kate had the kid, but then Jack kind of went around, and then John went around and tried to convince everybody to come back. Saeed was protecting people, but he kind of went back to being a killer, so he kind of regretted it. And they kind of thought, well, the only forgiveness. Oh, and then Ben convincing everyone, like, oh, listen, John died for you guys. So it was just a ploy to get everybody back because they needed someone to take over the island. So, but yeah, I thought it was a great ending. Once it gets broken down and people can openly discuss it, it's great ending where everything that happened. That's it. It wasn't purgatory. You were watching a weird science fiction island show the whole time. Like, there was time travel. Like, it happened. It was all real. It was like, wow, how deep is that, where everybody died, regardless if that was the best moment of their life. That's just a story they decided to tell. That's when they went on to
think
the
a lot of
afterlife.
People misunderstood and thought, like, okay, the plane crashed and then they all died and everything else was a dream. Like, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, that was the problem. Everyone was like, well, it's purgatory. I'm like, no, listen to Jack's dad, where he literally says, everything you experienced is real. Everything you experienced after is real. And everything you've been experiencing in season 6 is you finding your path and accepting yourself and accepting your life to get to this point, because you're ready to move on. We don't know how Kate died. We don't know how a lot of people died. And we don't need those explanations. We just know, okay, at some point, Kate died and she's here. We know when Jack died. We know when Shannon died. We know when Boone died. We don't know when Rose, like, people die at different times. We don't need every single story of like, well, when did Kate die? I don't know. She just died. She just lived a normal life and she died. Okay. No big deal. All right. Get off of it. So just chill out. So did you guys watch the what was it? The prologue
Yeah,
DVD special
the
for
new
us.
man in charge. I don't think I've ever watched
Yeah.
it. Though.
There's two or three.
I might have, but I don't remember.
Two things, yeah. I have watched them several
Yeah.
times. So,
That was the one with
Yeah.
Ben, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ben and
that
her
was really-
back on the real world. Walt. Walt!
Can't-
Walt!
And he's just, yeah, that's the thing where it continued to answer more questions where he went and talks to Walt. So Walt's in the insane asylum. And it's like, so does Walt become the new number? Oh, yeah, it's Walt and Hurley. So that's the thing. Hurley's still alive. And he's either training him to be the new number 1 or to be Ben's number 2 type of thing. So it's, they continue to answer questions after the series is over. Because my wife, it was funny, my wife was like, well, what about the food drops? What about all this stuff? That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, boy, do I have something for you, because there's a DVD special not aired on television just for the collectors. And it was so funny because she's like, it doesn't make any sense that these questions weren't answered. And I was like, but they were. And they literally sat down with these two guys, which were meant to be the fans watching the show, because they're like, well, what about this? What about that? And they're like, well, here's the answers. We're going to watch this video, and then you guys get your severance pay, and then that's the end. No more answers. And it was almost like a talking directly to the fans.
Yeah.
And it was, very fourth wall breaking, where it was like, that's clever, because you're talking directly to us.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to us rattle on here now and suddenly going, what the heck are you talking about? Maybe you just watch the binge online and that kind of stuff. You can find it on YouTube. Is it on the binge as well? I can't remember.
It's on the DVD.
Over here in the UK, we've got D+.
I don't know if it's on.
Is it on your Hulu stuff there?
I don't think it's on Hulu. I had to
Oh,
look.
Hulu.
It's
yeah.
on.
It's on
I had to go
YouTube. Yeah.
I had to
It's
go
on
to
YouTube.
YouTube to watch.
If
I don't think
you Google Lost, the new man in charge, you'll find it on YouTube to watch. For those listening at home.
If you haven't watched it.
And there's also, as I've forgotten, I was talking about in other chats that we were saying about I'm sure I remember bits. There's other bits that I remember, but I can't quite remember. I'm still sure in that pilot episode there's an extended pilot episode somewhere. And I'm sure there's some other stuff in it, but I might be completely making it up still. But another thing to Google on YouTube, if you didn't watch Lost the first time round, is the mini episodes, Missing Pieces. That's on YouTube as well, and that's a series of very short shorts that were little small scenes.
13 of them.
Seasons 1, 2, and 3, yeah. Add little bits and stuff.
Is it just a recap, or is it something official?
No, they're like little side stories.
It's official. It's official.
I don't know if I've seen that.
No, well, I'd forgotten about them. I was so convinced there was something that I couldn't remember.
They were made for cell phones are coming out during that time.
Yeah. If you go to YouTube and you Google Lost Missing Pieces, there's a link. It's about 31 minutes long. It's a series of 13 episodes that were released weekly on abc.com between 2007 and 2008. Each episode fills in a narrative gap somewhere in the timeline for the first 3 seasons. So in some respects, it's a bit like deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's worth a watch just for getting another half hour, a bit more of Lost, really.
Yeah. So we have this huge show. We touched on all this information for the past almost 2 hours, and I feel like we still haven't even scratched the surface because we didn't discuss. Yeah. We didn't discuss all the great characters like Saeed and Hurley, which are probably my 2 favorite. They were just fantastic. That album we got. So I don't know. Did you guys have some favorite characters? Like, who did you enjoy watching the most?
Talking about the last season of Saeed and stuff. This still kind of gets me a bit now. So remember, Saeed gets shot or whatever in the last season. He's pretty much dead. So they take him to the temple. They bang him in the water. He's like, oh no, take him out. Oh no, he's still dead. Then he comes back to life. And then there's this whole thing by those religious cult people. No, we need to kill him because he's gone bad. He's bad.
Yeah.
And I still don't get much explanation because really, for about 1 or 2 episodes, you were thinking, yeah, actually, I think that dirty water might have turned Saeed bad. He looks a bit dodgy. And then it's almost like it's forgotten about. Saeed's back to normal. I don't know if that was a change in direction by the writers at the time and stuff, but that just seems to be a bit overlooked. That whole thing in the last season. I don't know whether anybody else picked up anything else, any explanation for what the heck was going on there.
That was a little confusing too. So I remember him died. I remember him coming back. But I don't remember why. Like,
Well, they did all
was
these
it-
exper- they did all these. They did these experiments on him, didn't they? They pumped the religious cult and did these things, and they said, "Oh, the result is you failed. You're bad. We need to kill you now before there's too much evil." But Sari was an evil person. But the way that they were explaining it was that it was because the water was dirty. There's less chance of it actually work, and that maybe the water was dirty. And I presume they were sort of saying that maybe it might have Man in Black evilness.
well, I think
in the water.
Jacob was dead at that time. Wasn't Jacob
Yeah.
dead at that time? So maybe that's
Yes.
where the water was bad.
The water wasn't healing water anymore,
Mm.
but yet he came back. So the water kind of worked. And then there's a kind of thing that maybe it's dirty water. And I can understand the dirty water thing because you've got the Man in Black was created through smoke when Jacob threw his brother down that hole into the light and that kind of stuff. So I can understand that dirty water might mean evilness. And then it's kind of like Sai's character didn't really change after one episode. So I don't really understand exactly where that. Didn't really feel like that was kind of completely played through. I might do some Google on that.
I remember they wanted him to kill.
On.
They wanted him to kill John, but John
Yes.
was already dead. Which was pretty cool.
It was just a little bit of an odd. It made sense, but it just didn't feel like there was something a little bit unexplained or didn't all add up about it.
Yeah, they just kind of moved past it, didn't they?
Yeah, that's one thing. I think they just dropped wasn't it dropped it, but just didn't expand on it. But there were some great episodes throughout the whole season, and there was a couple in the last season, and one where we go right back to the beginning and we see Jacob and the Man in Black arrive in the island, and the Mad Mother murders their mother and all that kind of stuff. And we get Richard's backstory, which is epic in itself. That was a great episode too. Another episode we talked about, the one I think was in the first 2 or 3 seasons, the one where they talk about. You remember, there's the main group of characters, and then there's always these people ad hoc in the background, and we get that one about 2 of the couples who were just basically what were they? They just cheated on everybody, didn't they, and stole things and that kind of stuff, and they ended up killing each other with these spiders. Remember the spiders that paralyzed them?
Oh,
and they ended up
you're talking
buried
about.
alive?
I wanted to bring that up, Nikki and Paolo, because I was going to ask what was probably the most. Yeah, I got to say, as a whole, because Lost has a ton of huge moments, but when I think it was like I mentioned with Sawyer, where he kind of turned evil again, just to get back the guns, the long con. That episode was great for him, but as an overall episode, I gotta say this episode, which is season 3, episode 14, Expose, that has got to be one of the most shocking turn of events and the thing.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't affect the whole island. It really just affects. It really could just be considered a filler episode. It is the epitome of a filler episode, but the way it affects everybody is just so shocking because you're wondering the whole time who killed this girl, who killed Nikki, what's going on with that, where's going on, they're hunting diamonds, everyone's backstabbing each other in the back, and it ends up being like Nikki wants to kill Paolo and she has the spiders, but then the spiders get out and bite Nikki and she's actually paralyzed. And then Paolo, so they're running all these mysteries, like Hurley's trying to solve this mystery. What did he say? What's going on? They're questioning all these people. And then in the very last second, it's revealed that they are both bitten by spiders. They're both paralyzed as they get buried alive with dirt. And it's just like, oh my God, that was incredible. The twist that was, and I loved it. So that might be my favorite overall episode is that one.
Because it's
It was a
almost
throwaway
self-contained-
episode.
It's almost a self-contained episode. I mean, if you never watched any other episode of Lost, you could probably watch that episode and understand to a degree what's going on.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great big moments and shocks, but from beginning to end, it told one solid story, one confined story with these 2 side characters that nobody really cared about. And it still was like, oh, that was amazing. So I definitely agree. Expose and the way those characters spun out is probably one of the best episodes for Lost to me.
I would say for me, there's so many great characters. It's impossible to go down that discussion route because and that's what probably made Ross so brilliant. Apart from the mystery and all that kind of stuff, there was so many rich characters and so many likable characters you can connect with.
They actually got story and they got focus. So what's some of your favorite or least favorite characters?
I don't think I had any I didn't like. I'm trying to think now. I liked every character to
Michael.
yes. Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
A bit annoying, yeah.
Jerk.
But,
So-
I'm trying to think now. I have a little think in the background.
Because like I said, Hurley and Saeed are two.
Hurley's
Those are the
favorite.
type of
Kirby,
episodes.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
even those episodes. Because like I said, my wife didn't watch all the episodes with me. She slept through some. But when I got to a Hurley, a John, or a Saeed episode, and she has the hots for Saeed, which I thought was really funny. So when I got to those episodes, I stopped watching and I wait for her to wake up because every one of them had such big impacting information on the entire season. What Hurley was doing, what Saeed was doing. Saeed was just a great character. He didn't want to be a leader. He was the enforcer type of thing. And he was great. And he was still nice. Everyone went to him for leadership. He was smart. But I got to say, when I rewatched this, I had no idea what to expect. But I ended up absolutely despising Kate and Jack. Like those two characters were just so selfish and so like Jack, he was like, I don't want to be the leader. Well, we need a leader. Okay, I'll step up and be the leader. And then when people don't agree with them, he gets mad and he gets upset where he's like, well, I'm the leader. And I'm like, a leader doesn't mean dictator. Like, you still have to just be the person people look up to, which was like Sawyer and Saeed, where Jack was he was selfish. He wanted to go back to the island. He dragged everyone back there.
He looked
He
down
ended
on
up
people.
screwing up. Yeah, he always looked down. He was always, and they even pointed this out, I think, in season 2, where it was like, oh, I'm not part of the in crowd because Jack and Kate created the in crowd. And Kate was just she was such a pick-me. She always wanted to be involved with everything. And I get it's part of writing. There has to be some love interest, but it was literally Kate bouncing back and forth between Sawyer and Jack. But one thing that always annoyed me is that they're like, listen, we got this big time secret. Let's keep it from everybody. And then Kate would hear, and Kate would immediately run to somebody else and be like, you know what they were saying about you? This is what they were saying. And then the island would get in this big turmoil. And it's like, gosh, Kate, if you would just shut up and not tell everyone's secret, or if you weren't like, I want to go on the adventure with you. You know what, Kate, we don't want you. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to make it ruin for everybody. It's like she is such a want to be in the middle of attention. I hated Kate through the whole thing. And Jack was just such a spoiled jerk through the whole thing. I'm like, man, these two characters are the villains of the show. And then Jack's like, you know what? I'm going to be the leader of the island because I think I'm the best pick. And he ended up just being the worst choice possible. I mean, he ended up sacrificing himself, and at least he made one good decision in the 6 years was giving the island to Hurley. Like, that was the one good decision he made. So it's just like, otherwise, he should have just shut up and just been the doctor to help people because he was a terrible leader in every aspect. And I'm sorry to rant on this, but I've been holding it for the entire time where it's just these two were just bad characters. They were bad people that I want no association with
Well, you
in
can see
real
that
life.
on the first episode, he thinks everyone's stupid. Like, like when he's walking
Yeah.
around like trying to help people, he's like, "Oh my gosh, like this, okay, go
And
do
he
this."
gets,
and
he
he's
becomes
annoyed.
the leader.
Yeah.
He does good. He wants to help people, but he keeps reverting back to it's my way or no way, or yelling at John because John wants to believe in something. He's like, "You're stupid, John." Well, it ends up John was right, and he convinced John otherwise. And it's just like, man, those two were such spoiled jerks. I just couldn't stand them. Like, it drove me crazy.
It's just funny because there's always like the thing, like him wanting to go back to the island. It's because he was better on the island than he was in his actual life, and
Well,
I
no,
think that
he
that
was
was like the
perfectly-
whole,
He had the perfect life. He just screwed it up because he wasn't good enough. And I got daddy issues. And it's like, you're a world leading, in your field of spinal surgery. Like, you have all the power, popularity, and money in the world, and you blow it away because it wasn't good enough. And I want Kate to be with me, and I'm not happy. And I'm like, man, shut up. Like, God, man. Just terrible.
I think who's the other one that? Because there was Michael. Oh, you know Desmond. I like Desmond. He was
Yeah, I ended up saying brother for a long time.
I know.
I like Desmond. His story got kind of confusing.
Yeah.
It was nice. That was a real love story. He just wanted to get back to Penny.
Yeah.
Desmond was just cool. You know, it's like, hey, brother. You know, he was just a cool character.
Yeah, I know. There's like, yeah, even like when I went back and watched the recaps and stuff like that, like there's just so many, like you had Claire and you had Boone, you got a sister, you had all these like there's like it really was a big ensemble cast like of people.
Yeah, and they
You
just
know?
kept introducing more. They'd kill one and introduce five. So
Like, I think the only one that still does anything like is Evangeline Lilly, is Kate. Like she's
Yeah.
on Ant-Man.
Yeah,
and
she's
stuff.
I went and seen her in Quantumania the other day.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't
she
know,
went on
like-
to do.
Does anyone else? Like I haven't seen Jack in anything.
I think Michael appeared in some TV shows.
Oh yeah.
He went
he's always
to
in stuff.
again. They were just all small roles. I think
Sawyer's in a
Jack.
couple movies I watched.
I think
after
Jack
that.
was in. My wife told me this morning. Jack, Michael Fox, I think his name. Well, no, I don't think it's Michael Fox, but
Something like
he went on and he was in World War Z. But they didn't like his character so much they cut him completely from the show
What?
at like the peak. He was just a random airplane pilot.
Wow.
So and then they cut his whole scene just for that. So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've seen Locke on anything else. I think I might have.
no, it's kind of maybe random TV shows here and there that I didn't pick up.
Yeah.
But
I
Evangeline
would've
Lilly
thought
is
that.
really,
Yeah, she's the
you know,
only one.
and I like her in Ant-Man. I think she does good in there. But yeah, in Lost, just the way she was written, I was like, I hated that character.
I think I've just disappeared for 5 minutes. You're talking about
We're
characters
doing
that-
Where Are They Now?
I remember Josh Holloway in Connolly because I watched that TV series. That's quite good. It only lasted 2 seasons.
I
It's a
saw him
sci-fi
at
thing.
Disneyland.
Oh, you did, yes, you did.
Yeah, I saw him at Disneyland with his
Son of
wife.
a
And
bitch.
I wasn't gonna. He's a big dude. I wasn't gonna do that.
No. I just think what they've been in since. It's a bit like we're going back to Game of Thrones and stuff, but
They're all in Star Wars now.
They seem to be in everything at the moment. Everybody has been in Game of Thrones. I've seen Game of Thrones. Seems to be on everything I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anybody else. We're talking about. We have a think. Talking about characters. I still can't think of any character I totally disliked.
Michael.
Probably the closest ones might be the mother, but she wasn't a very likable character.
Jacob.
Daniel's mother
so,
and
no,
Whitmore's wife.
No, Jacob and the Man in Black's mother.
Oh yeah, kidnapper, type of thing. Just kidnapping.
Murderer, and a bit of a dictator as well, really. And I think there's a lot more to her. I mean, we kind of got a lot of hints to what she knew and what she didn't know. I think there's a lot more to her backstory as well. How the heck did she end up there, and what does she know about things beforehand? I'm trying to think. I can't think anybody I detest. Some of the Dharma people weren't overly interested in Ben's father, but there's nobody I really. When they came into the, it's not like anybody came on and I was like, oh, I really can't wait until they're not on next. Kate maybe wasn't my most favourite character, I have to say, but I didn't wish her scenes away. But it's not a character. I mean, Mr. Echo, I'm still one of my favourites, and I wish we got a lot more from him.
I like those Jacob.
Miles, I was not a bit disappointed we didn't get a lot more from him because his whole ability to talk to the dead and that kind of stuff was not really overly utilised enough.
Yeah, they didn't follow much of that.
No. But I can't think of anybody. Were you talking about anybody?
Miles
on
was the Dharma
screen
guy,
Didn't
right?
like them. I can't think of anybody. And we talk about Mr. Oh, what's he called? What was the?
Remember Miles was the son of the scientist of Dharma.
That's right.
Mm.
Yes.
Interesting twist.
I forgot. His
And
name.
Hurley tried to hook him back up. Well, he had two names. He went by one, and then he had his name. So I got confused on what it was.
What was there's some funny other characters and stuff. The others character. Do you remember him? The big chap. What was he called? It was called Mr. Something. Mr. Happy or Mr. Oh, I can't remember his name.
What'd he do?
Oh, he was
You talking
one of
about
the
Mr.
others.
Friendly?
Mr. Friendly, that's it. Mr. Friendly, yeah. He was
Who's
he was
that?
one of the ones we saw near the end of season 1 when he some of the kidnappers and stuff, and then they were He was
Yeah, he was like the big dude. He was the older guy.
the big dude, yeah.
Yeah. Had like a husband or whatever. Yeah.
God, there's so many characters, aren't there? And we had the other chap with the eye patch. He was
Yeah, the Russian guy.
Russian guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I loved when him and Saeed were like questioning each other when they're at the flame, and they're like, we don't know if we could trust this guy. So it's like two interrogators, like
Yeah.
Saeed's pushing him, and I almost had it like Dominic or Mikhail. It was Mikhail.
Mikhail, that's it. Yeah.
So yeah, where they're like
Okay.
pushing each other back and forth, and then they're just like, listen, are we gonna play this game all day? Or are we gonna do this? And then those two just get in a fight and they're shooting each other and smacking each other with bottles. That was brilliant. Two masterminds of torture and questioning were just like, all right, listen, we both know what's going on. We gonna continue running in circles, or are we gonna handle this the right way? And pop, pop, pop. And they just start fighting.
We haven't talked about the French lady.
Oh,
And Annex.
which again, we can't cover everybody. There's just so
No.
many characters. The show can't be that long, but it's like,
She was
if you
a
haven't
big minor player, but yes.
yeah, if you haven't watched Lost, if we didn't spoil completely everything, if you forget about some of the things we say, go just watch it. Or hopefully this will be just a good recap to your memory, and you go and rewatch Lost again. And if you want to talk about it, you can message any one of us. We have the Facebook page. I like that too. We have our Star Wars page. We keep it Star Wars, Positively Star Wars Senate. But it's probably the easier way to find us. But yeah, it's Lost always deserves more discussion. Or there's the Lost Reddit page that I try to peer in every once in a while, type of thing. So Lost is still alive and well with a lot of people.
I'm still of the feeling that I'd love to see it come back and I'd like to see some continuation. And most people say there's no way it can happen, but I think you've got somebody who's got a clever enough brain, a clever enough idea. There are ways to spin it off, but obviously you have to make it a lot. You have to come up with something a lot.
I felt like it has all the closure it needs. Still, if it was to be explored, I would like to maybe read a book, about maybe what Hurley was able to accomplish, or his challenges, or Walt, or something that explores it more. But I felt like the show was finalized enough. It's been too long to de-age and look at other characters.
Yes.
But I was really bummed when I was rewatching that there was absolutely no novels that explored it any deeper, type of thing, and backstory and characters or anything like that. I was just like, man, I want it more. And sometimes that's good in a show, because if you have everything, you don't want any more and you don't think of it. But if shows leave you like, I'm staring at a pop right now of a character from the movie Brightburn, where it leaves like a huge cliffhanger and you want more, but it leaves it open for discussion. And then people make a sequel and it's like, well, that's never as good as the discussion. So I think Lost ended perfectly, exactly what it needed to. Still left some mystery, but still gave a ton of answers. So,
Except because of that,
great
it
show.
became like water cooler talk, because you didn't have a book, you didn't have any references. You just you watch what you watch. It truly is just like a TV show. Like you watch what you watch on screen, and that's where all the information comes from.
Yeah, really don't need all this deep intercut to learn anything. Yeah, that is a good point. What you see on screen is what you get. You don't need to learn anything else other than you have to think deeply about the ending. And it's
there's
just like, okay.
There's a lot of little Easter egg things in there you can look up, like the stuff about Buddhism and Dharma and all that stuff, that the little Easter eggs they throw in there, and it kind of does add to the story. It kind of builds the world a little bit more. So I mean that's like research you could do to enhance your viewing. Which is fun.
Yeah. So, but yeah, overall, great show. I'm glad we all got to rewatch it and finally sit down and discuss this 19 years later.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it all again, because I did start watching the pilot and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I like that character, and
Season 1 and 2 was probably one of the best television in
I
history.
wonder if I could watch it and then just do the flash forwards after, or the flash sideways is after. There has to be a cut somewhere where someone did that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I kind of knew where it was going, it might be maybe, since you know what's coming, maybe watch the finale of 4 and 5 and then go back and watch it.
And then
But
go back
I-
and watch the whole show.
it works better just to go through and watch it, and then it just really makes you think. Like at the end of season 5 or 4, really makes you think. Like, oh,
I was,
all
like,
these future flash forwards and flash sideways, they really did have a point. They may seem confusing at the time, but if you invest 15 episodes or whatever, you'll get it. And it's like, oh, you got me, man.
I was really invested in it when it was on, and like that last episode was like so like emotional for me because like you finally saw them like I mean yeah they're meeting up at the end, but they're finally finding peace, you know, in a way, you know, and then they all found each other again. They went through all the stuff on the island and all the other stuff in their lives, and at the end they're basically still friends, you know. So that was I enjoyed the ending too, but yeah, I'm gonna have to revisit that.
It's nice in
Again.
some ways that you could say it's finished and that there might not be any more because it's a self-contained thing. And we talk about Star Wars or not, and you know, nothing in Star Wars is finished in any way. There could always be something that they can add or tell a story in between, you know, episodes 1 and 2 or something else and that stuff. There's always something they can add to it. Whereas with Lost, we've seen everything there is to see. And
Could
that
you
is-
have another group land on the island?
Well, you could do. I wouldn't mind going back to the Egyptian.
With Hurley
I'm
in
not sure
charge,
how they would
you know?
how they would run with it because the Egyptian period would be before Jacob.
I say let's just leave it as is, and it can be open for
Oh,
discussion.
I
And people
know.
can make
I
their own
I
thing.
totally agree. There will be a big debate online if the day comes, and I will be honest, I will welcome it. The day comes, and they say we're going to make a Lost spin-off or a Lost reboot or a Lost
It's gonna be called Found.
whatever. I will lap it up. But on the other side, there will be a big debate online. Oh, you're going to ruin it. It's all done. It's and that kind of stuff. But I still say,
Yeah.
you come up with a great idea, and somebody's willing to get behind it. I will lap up
I think
anything
half
else.
the fun was like the mystery of trying to figure it out. So I mean, we kind of know everything now. So it's like, you know,
Well, they can add to it. I say they choose a
Yeah.
different timeline. They can time period. They can add to a mystery and something we didn't know about, and then tie it on. Just a bit like we got Rogue One, you know, which added so much to the start of A New Hope that we never thought we needed to know. Rogue One was the film nobody really wanted. We didn't really think we needed it, and so there's absolute way they could do something very similar with Lost, and it all makes sense and all just flows straight into what we already know. It can happen.
it's true.
I, for one, would not want to see it again on TV. Like, I think
I
we
still
got
say
the story.
bring it up.
Like I said,
Some more.
sometimes it's good to let it rest. Maybe a book about Hurley's adventures or something. But let's just let it rest. It's a great show. I'm glad we can come together and talk about it 19 years later.
I don't
That
think
it's still,
JJ would
you know,
let it happen.
Still get focused. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. Maybe in the future we'll find another show to watch. I know me and Ricky plan on doing a second board game discussion for this because we've got a lot of board games.
Yeah,
So
I got more.
we'll just have to we'll have to find an idea and we'll meet up again. I'm always up for a Marvel Phase 4 discussion. So, but anything will be able to meet up
I'll have to
again.
be the grumpy man in the corner on that one.
I haven't watched it yet.
Steven only watched Endgame, and that's it.
I can say this sounds rubbish, ridiculous. That's
I
my
don't get it.
whole episode. Yeah,
Yeah, you like watching Star Trek stuff, so I'd be the guy
Oh,
in the corner in that one.
Star Trek discussion at some point. Yeah, or Judge Judy one.
Judge Judy episode would be fun.
I bet you there's no other podcast out there that's done a whole 2 hours talking about Judge Judy.
Judge Judy.
Bet you. We would certainly be unique in that one.
Oh man. Yeah, this is good. I was glad to revisit the island and all the stations. There's
Yeah,
so
so-
much passion.
Could all be up, might even be back for a part 2 at some point.
There's a lot.
There's so many
Talk
things
about
we
aliens.
deep delve into
Yeah.
episodes and stuff like that, yeah, and characters and stuff. We've only skimmed the surface,
You did. We only
cream and the top.
And like I said,
Because-
on the Reddit page, I still see a lot of people like, oh, I'm watching Lost for the first time. So
yeah.
Hope- like I said, just there's the joy of streaming. You can sit down, you can watch it, you can binge it, you can understand it better, and just like I said, it's a great show that's I think stands out in history as something good. So this is good. We can get back together and hopefully somebody watches it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it. And see you in another life, brother.
Good one. All right, bye everybody.
Wow.
We gotta go back.
Not Penny's podcast.
Don't tell me what I can't do.
We are everybody. Goodbye
yeah.
now.
Everybody. Hello, everybody. That's the one. Very
I'm
good.
painting my fingernails with marker as we speak.
I like that. I like